Most people treat philosophy like a dusty academic pillow, soft, boring, and useless in real life. But ancient Greek philosophers were warriors who used their ideas to conquer cities and change empires. You're getting steamrolled in arguments and second-guessing decisions because you think being philosophical means being passive. Philosophy was never meant to be gentle contemplation. It was designed as intellectual combat training. The Stoics called their practices spiritual exercises, the same term used for military drills. When Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great, he wasn't teaching quiet pondering. He was weaponizing thinking to build the largest empire in ancient history. Today, I'm showing you 5 specific philosophical techniques that transform your mental framework from defense to offense. These aren't abstract concepts. They're precise cognitive tools that give you unshakable confidence, laser-sharp decision-making, and the ability to dismantle any argument. By the end, you'll understand why philosophy is the ultimate power move most people are too scared to make. Part 1. The Intellectual Aikido Method. Ever walk away from an argument feeling demolished, even though you knew you were right? While you're trying to build a fortress of facts, successful debaters play an entirely different game with rules you've never learned. The ancient Greeks had a secret weapon, the Socratic method, but weaponized for intellectual combat. Instead of meeting force with force, you use your opponent's momentum against them. Instead of exhausting yourself proving they're wrong, you let them prove themselves wrong. Think about actual Aikido. When someone charges with overwhelming force, you don't plant your feet and try to stop them. You step aside and redirect their energy until they defeat themselves. The same principle applies to arguments. Here's how it works. When someone makes a claim you disagree with, resist every urge to argue. Instead, ask one simple question. If that's true, what would happen if everyone did that? Then sit back and let them follow their own logic. When someone says, "I don't need to follow those rules, I'm special," ask, what would happen if everyone decided they were special enough to ignore rules? Let them paint that picture. Watch their confidence crumble as they realize they're advocating for chaos. This technique is devastatingly effective because it doesn't feel like an attack. You're not telling them they're wrong. You're asking them to take their idea to its logical conclusion. Most bad ideas collapse under the weight of their own implications. The beauty is it requires minimal energy from you, while maximum energy from them. They have to do all the work of following their logic to its endpoint and confronting contradictions in their own thinking. Action step. Choose one daily situation where you typically argue. For 3 days, practice asking, what would happen if everyone did that? Instead of presenting counter-arguments. Part 2. The premeditation of obstacles. Picture giving the most important presentation of your career. You've prepared perfectly, then the projector dies, your laptop won't connect, and half the decision makers are late. Are you paralyzed by chaos, or do you adapt and thrive? Most people prepare for success and get blindsided by failure. They create beautiful plans, assuming everything will go perfectly, then fall apart when reality intervenes. The ancient Stoics had a different approach. Premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This isn't about being negative. It's about developing strategic paranoia. Research shows athletes who mentally rehearse obstacles improve performance by up to 23%. Navy SEALs use this to stay calm under pressure. This eliminates the shock factor from failure. The most successful people you know share one trait. They're rarely surprised by problems. Not because they're lucky, but because they've already considered what could go wrong and prepared accordingly. Action step. Take your biggest current goal. Spend 10 minutes writing down the 5 most likely ways it could fail. For each potential problem, create a specific backup plan. If this happens, then I will do that. Part 3. The dichotomy of control matrix. You're lying awake at 3 a.m., mind racing through endless worries. Your boss seemed annoyed. The stock market is concerning. Your daughter isn't answering texts. Your brain treats every concern as equally important and urgent, burning mental energy on things that happened yesterday and might happen next month. Most stress comes from trying to control things you can't control while neglecting things you can control. The ancient Stoics discovered we suffer not because of what happens to us, but because of how we think about what happens to us. Every stressful situation fits into 3 buckets. Bucket 1. Complete control. Your thoughts, responses, decisions, effort, character, and values. You control what you pay attention to, how you interpret events, and what actions you take. Bucket 2. Influence. Only other people's opinions, your health, business results, relationships. You can influence these but not control them. Bucket 3. No control, weather, other people's choices, the past, the future, your genetics, what others think about you. The life-changing application. Things in bucket 1 deserve your full attention. Things in bucket 2 deserve strategic influence attempts, but not emotional attachment to outcomes. Things in bucket 3 deserve complete mental dismissal. Most people spend 80% of their mental energy on bucket 3, 15% on bucket 2, and only 5% on bucket 1. This is exactly backwards. Maximum effectiveness comes from spending 80% of energy on bucket 1. Action step. For 1 week, categorize every stressful situation into these 3 buckets. Notice where you're wasting energy and consciously redirect it to bucket 1 activities. Part 4. The philosophical interrogation technique. You've heard question everything, but you've never actually done it systematically. Right now, you're walking around with dozens of unquestioned assumptions shaping every decision. Most of these beliefs weren't chosen by you. They were downloaded from parents, culture, media, and peers. The philosophical interrogation technique is systematic examination of any belief until you either strengthen it with evidence or abandon it as unsupported. The beliefs that survive become unshakable foundations, those that don't get replaced with better ones. Use 5 specific questions in sequence. What evidence supports this belief? Not opinions or traditions. Actual evidence. What would change my mind? If nothing could change your mind, you're holding a prejudice, not a belief. Who benefits if this belief is true? Follow the money and power behind belief systems. What am I not seeing? Force yourself to look for contrary evidence and blind spots. What would the opposite belief look like? Genuinely consider you might be wrong. Action step. Choose 1 strong belief you hold and run it through all 5 questions. Be brutally honest about what you discover. Part 5. The memento mori motivator. If you found out you had exactly 6 months left to live, would you spend tomorrow the way you're currently planning? Most people avoid this question because they're spending finite time on infinite trivialities. Memento mori means remember you must die. Ancient philosophers kept skulls on their desks not to be gloomy, but to maintain perspective. Research shows people who regularly contemplate mortality make more authentic choices, waste less time on social approval seeking, and experience greater life satisfaction. Death is the ultimate deadline. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, everything snaps into focus. You don't have time for toxic relationships, meaningless conflicts, or activities that don't align with your deepest values. You already have a terminal diagnosis. It's called being human. The only difference between you and someone who just received devastating news is you don't know your exact expiration date. Action step. Set a daily phone reminder asking, if I had 6 months to live, would I spend today as planned? Let that answer guide your choices. Part 6. The virtue signal disruption. If someone filmed everything you did for a month but nobody would ever see the footage, no recognition, no credit, no praise, how much of your behavior would change? If your good behavior would change significantly, you're performing virtue rather than practicing it. Performing virtue is exhausting and corrupts your moral compass. When you do good things for recognition rather than because they're right, you lose touch with authentic values and start optimizing for social approval rather than personal integrity. True character is revealed in private moments when nobody is watching. The most genuinely good people do the right thing even without an audience. The test is brutal in its simplicity. Would you still do it if nobody would ever know? If the answer is no, you're signaling rather than practicing. If yes, your behavior is authentic. Action step: choose one area where you suspect virtue signaling. Commit to doing something genuinely helpful in that area without telling anyone about it. Part 7. The Philosophical Razor Method. Every important decision puts you at a crossroads, the simple, obvious choice everyone takes, or the complex, nuanced approach few consider. Most people are either chronic oversimplifiers or overcomplicators, missing opportunities in both directions. The Philosophical Razor Method teaches you to choose simplicity when it serves you and complexity when it serves you, rather than defaulting to one approach. Sometimes the breakthrough everyone missed is radical simplification. Sometimes it's sophisticated complexity. First, identify the simplest possible solution. Strip away unnecessary assumptions and complications. Write it in one clear sentence. Then ask, is this too simple because I'm avoiding necessary complexity, or appropriately simple because I've eliminated unnecessary complexity? Look at what everyone else in your situation is doing. If everyone uses simple approaches, consider whether complexity might work better. If everyone uses complex approaches, consider whether simplicity might be your competitive advantage. Action step: apply this to your biggest current challenge. Write the simplest solution, then determine if you need to add necessary complexity or if everyone else is overcomplicating things you could solve simply. You now possess 7 philosophical weapons that can transform how you think, decide, and act. But weapons are only as effective as the warrior who wields them. These aren't intellectual exercises. They're practical tools designed for real advantages in real situations. They require commitment to implement consistently over time. Philosophy was never meant to be comfortable. It was meant to be transformative. The ancient philosophers developed these tools because they needed them in complex, challenging situations. Every day without these tools is a day you're fighting intellectual battles with inferior weapons. Every decision without this framework lacks the clarity you could have. Start today. Pick one technique that resonates most strongly and implement it immediately. Use it for 1 week, then add another. Within 2 months, you'll have integrated all 7 approaches and wonder how you ever made decisions without them. Philosophy isn't about finding comfortable answers. It's about asking uncomfortable questions that lead to better decisions. The battlefield of daily life is waiting, and now you're armed for victory.